Welcome to X-Men Evolution, Episode 7 of Cyclops is Waiting for Me, an X-Men animated recap podcast. Hey, I did that without stuttering this time. I'm Rod, and my brain is oatmeal. I just got back from a week-long wedding ceremony, and my flight was delayed overnight in Philadelphia. Fuck Philly, man. But I got Wawa.
You just gained us enemies in the first 30 seconds of the show. Great job.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think most people would agree they like Wawa more than they like Philly.
I don't know. We have some mutuals who I think are going to fight you after this. But I am JC. I have no problem with Philadelphia or its Eagles, just for the record. And yeah, we haven't recorded in, it's been like 6 weeks since we last recorded because obviously, you know, as we mentioned in front of our previous episodes, we took a pause during the month of July with observance of the SAG-AFTRA strike. And we wanted to make sure that we were not crossing any picket lines. We got some guidance, and we see that shows like X-Men 97 are not actually considered crossing the picket line. You know, I think it goes without saying for the both of us, you know, pay your fucking writers, pay your fucking actors, do right by the people who are making the content that everybody's consuming. If you're making millions of dollars, you could afford to pay somebody a few extra bucks an hour.
And just like a little personal anecdote, you know, most people by now, you know, I'm a musician, and we went through all this with Spotify, and we kind of lost, you know, so you can see what's happening with that is that like we're the ones filling Spotify with music, but the least paid out of everyone in the entire pipeline. So don't want that to happen to our writers and actors, and maybe it'll turn back around for us too. Who knows?
Hopefully. Cyclops is Waiting for Me is our, once again, weekly podcast series where we're going back and watching every single X-Men animated episode we can find, along with some bonus episodes. Our first series started out with the original 1992 X-Men the Animated Series, building up to the release of X-Men 97, which we thought was going to be coming to Disney Plus in 2023. More on that in a minute. But since it's not here yet, we had to fill it out with some other shows.
Some quick reminders. We're a recap show about a series that started over 20 years ago. There will be spoilers. If you don't want it spoiled for you, pause the podcast, watch the episode, and come back. We're currently not sponsored. Definitely not sponsored with Marvel.
Hashtag non-spawn.
Yeah, Marvel Animation, Disney or Disney Plus in any way.
Don't forget to follow us on social media at Cyclops IWFM Pod on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Twitter, which I personally refuse to call X without mocking it, and Facebook. And of course, make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast services. If you want to support the show, we have a small issue that has popped up with Amazon affiliate, which we had started putting into it. So when you create an Amazon affiliate account, you have to put the site that you're going to be promoting to. Okay. And apparently a podcast feed does not work for Amazon affiliate, but they don't tell you until you're 90 days in to the actual setup. So I think all the old links still will work, but they will not give us credit for anything that goes through it. So, Rod, after this, we have to talk about if we want to resubmit and then risk it in 90 days. So, yeah, we're going to have to chat about that after the fact.
Okay. That's fun. It's funny. I was going to ask you if that worked because I was testing it with something else that I got because I had like, a bunch of bigger purchases. I was like, I wonder if this ended up like coming through. Guess not.
Yeah, I mean, technically they did work. I saw the reporting and I hadn't put in our payment information, so Amazon probably owes us like $10 we're never going to get to.
Oh, well.
But before we get into the show, this is the first time we are recording since San Diego Comic-Con, and there was some X-Men 97 news coming from it. I have a little bit of a quick recap that I wrote, Rod, but as somebody who was not there at the show, would love to get your X-Men related thoughts from the event.
Okay, so not X-Men related, but I saw more Mortal Kombat news come out of there than any other stuff, obviously, because there was no movie news. But as far as X-Men 97 stuff, I saw like a podcast with the Leewalds and I think Larry Houston.
Well, the Leewalds were not in San Diego at Comic-Con.
No, they were on it was like an auxiliary thing that Marvel put out or whatever. Yep. And then I heard that they had shown a clip.
There were some clips shown,
there, but they didn't post them anywhere else. I'm going to assume there was at least a hint to a delay because there's so much stuff happening with just media in general. And even though this isn't a struck project, like it can't have been, or I wouldn't be surprised if it was complicated by everything or that was already happening, including the stuff that's been happening recently.
All right, so that goes to number 4 on the 5 things that I got coming out of the show. Bo DeMeo told Marvel.com that production is going well. They're in post-production on all things season 1, so it shouldn't be a delay, anything associated to the writing. But they are currently writing the finale for season 2.
I think I do remember him mentioning that on
Yep.
one of the things that posted.
So that was one of the things, and just because you never go in order, so it's appropriate that it's something from the bottom of the list. Number 5 on the list, because fuck going in order, were the toys, which we posted some of the stuff, especially from the Hasbro booth. We threw up some reels and such for that. They're smaller than I expected. The actual figures themselves were not X-Men Legend size. They're definitely tinier figures.
I like the Toy Biz size ones. Like ones
They're not Toy Biz size either. That's the weird part.
They're smaller than that.
Like the Epic figure that I have that I posted on our Instagram is smaller. The other ones look smaller, like skinnier than the Toy Biz ones.
Interesting.
Like it's not dramatic, but there's definitely like I don't know, like a 10% difference. It feels like
This is gonna be hard to beat because, like, I don't know about, I'm not a toy collector necessarily, but like if somebody like me was gonna get something from like a show like X-Men '97, my expectation is like the '90s toys. That's why like, I even personally don't love like the Legends figures and stuff because like I just want like the old janky like Storm figure I have here and stuff.
The only problem I have with any of the Legends figures is the Build-A-Figure attachment that comes with it.
Oh yeah.
In the old boxes. The new boxes don't matter because, like, Rod is seeing, oh, here's the new Hawkeye figure, but it's a totally sealed box that has no see-through on it, which I also don't like from a figure collecting perspective.
Because then you just have a box and you don't even know if everything's in there.
I mean, that one I'm going to put on the shelf and open it, but, like, all the VHSs that are signed behind me, those are all in their box and never going to be open. So
and aren't they made of like biodegradable materials too?
that is why, is because it's going to be biodegradable. Luckily, it's not going to biodegrade in our lifetime. Yeah. Hopefully. Well, I mean, let's be on the dark side. Let's be realistic.
We are in like the
end times
hottest month in like 120,000 years or something.
I think it's closer to like 12,000, but yes.
Okay, I saw a 6-digit number.
Oh, good. I mean, it may have gotten hotter in the past few days. So. Yeah. Also, biggest one, most likely, or sorry, not the biggest one, but most obvious one, it is official that Bishop and Morph are joining the team. Oh, they were seen in the artwork, but it was not official that they were going to be full-fledged team members. Mm-hmm. And both of them have a little bit of a different look. Bishop has shorter hair, which is reminiscent of some of his more recent comic book looks. And Morph is in the white head version, which most of us attribute to the Age of Apocalypse as being where that started.
Oh, gotcha, yeah.
You saw it on the X-Men '97 cover of the Hellfire Gala book. Sunfire is that other person who's most known for being one of the New Mutants in the comics.
Yeah. So he's going to be joining the team or just a show?
I believe they said appearing in the series. It was not confirmed if he's going to be a full-fledged member. That one I think could get interpreted either way. And most of the stuff I'm referencing is via IGN.com to give appropriate credit. Gotcha. We had already seen some of the villains. The focus of the 2 clips were the Sentinels, though. So those 2 clips that were shown were Sentinels. That's why you haven't seen it in any of the artwork, but they did show the toy at the Marvel stage, which I was by the stage when they revealed that to people.
It looked pretty accurate to what we knew.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit of a redesign, but it's not like a dramatic negative one, which we sometimes see with toy redesigns. Or
it's not like Super Mario Brothers, like the Goombas.
No, it is definitely not
movies, that. Where they turn into small-headed lizards or something.
Yes, I could vouch it is not that. And then Jean Grey is visibly pregnant in the footage that is shown as well.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So they're just gonna fridge her for a while. Then is that what's happening?
I mean, they probably want to get to the Cable storyline, and in the comics there are 2 canonical children for them, even though neither one is actually Jean's kid. Mm-hmm. You have Cable, who is the baby of the clone of Madeline Pryor, who we don't get in this show or have not gotten in the show yet, or Rachel, who is the Phoenix from the Days of Future Past story, which we obviously didn't get her. She's the ones that, resembles the Hound's outfit that we talked about in The Fifth Horseman. So
yeah, man, a lot of moving parts.
So that's what we got from San Diego Comic-Con, but not a release date. I think to your point, Rod, not having a release date probably is some indication that it is going to end up in 2024. Luckily, we have a lot of animated stuff still to go because we will not cover anything that is a struck production until the strike has ended. So anybody who's looking forward to Rod having to rewatch Wolverine Origins, you get a little bit of a reprieve, Rod.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, that seems rough.
Yeah. But that's everything, Rod. That's San Diego.
And not to discredit anything from Bo, but I always feel like when you don't hear any news and the only thing you hear is somebody working on production, be like, it's going great. It feels like it's not going great. You know what I mean?
I mean,
although they did show footage, it wasn't us, but so
they showed footage and they acknowledged that there's going to be a second season, especially because we do know that some of the shows for Disney Plus have gotten canceled going into their second season. I believe it's been formally announced, and apologies if I'm wrong, but I believe it was announced that She-Hulk is not getting a second season. So, they wouldn't be letting them write a second season if the first wasn't good enough, is at least my perspective.
Especially with Disney deleting old, not old, like previous media and stuff that's been out for less than a year. And also, like, for anybody else that may have been confused like I was, I had some animator friends explain to me. So animation's a different union, but so is the writing. So there's still writing rooms for animated shows happening right now. Like, if you've seen, Dan Povenmire has been posting from his writer's room and stuff, since they're completely animated series with voiceover artists or different union and stuff. So they're just working on their non-struck project. Hollywood is complicated.
Yeah, to date the podcast, even though this is coming out weeks or probably a full month after San Diego Comic-Con wrapped up. Yeah, there was a post the other day that the Marvel VFX creators are actually unionizing or attempting to unionize. So
it's just hearsay, and I won't out who it was, but I have a friend that is a VFX artist for a company that gets hired by Marvel, and they have worked on several Marvel shows. One of the issues being that they had to work on at least 3 at the same time, and there were 3 really big ones. From what it sounds like, from what they were saying, it sounds like there's a few different like sub unions kind of forming. So I don't know how that works, if like they would come together at the end, or they'll see like which one maybe sticks and then everybody's kind of like absorbed them. But they really need it because Disney has the money. And also, we won't get that mess that we got in Secret Wars. Not Secret Wars, Secret Invasion. Although that had story problems too.
That was more story problem than VFX problems for me, at least.
But because most of it was practical. And then like there was this one scene where there was like this green hand, and I was like, I know the people that worked on that shot, and I know they could do it. And I feel like next time I talk to them, they'd be like, yeah, we had like 2 hours of work on that or something, or whatever is a small amount of time. Because I was like, it was just a hand, but it looks so bad. Like, it was like, how could the rest? Because even if those story was kind of crap, and this is coming from somebody who actively tries to like everything from Marvel, and this is probably only the second thing I haven't really enjoyed from them, and I even enjoyed the first half. I think the first thing obviously is Iron Fist, because fuck that thing. But like, Secret Invasion was like, wow, that ending they did not stick the landing whatsoever. But they had a shot where a Skrull hand showed up, and it was like, you could just put a glove on that guy and it'd been better. Like, that was weird. Anyway, yeah, VFX need to get paid more.
I just got to say, my biggest problem with anything Marvel has done on Disney Plus is still the kaiju fight in the middle of Moon Knight. That is still the thing that offends me the most as a human being. So
I thought it was the bonus feature for Hawkeye being the musical. That is
I'm actually still I'm still more offended by it.
Okay.
I do wish in Hawkeye that they showed the bird like actually trying to break into the van and get the tracksuit mafia, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, that is horrifying. Actually, you know what? I kind of agree with that, because it's almost worse not seeing it, because it leaves up to your imagination what happened to those guys.
Yeah.
It is probably the most disturbing cliffhanger in the MCU. It's wild. Anyway, now onto the show. Today we're going to be talking about Season 1, Episode 7, titled Turn of the Rogue. I know what that is meaning to mean, but it's a weird sentence.
I don't know if it is a play on certain words. Obviously, we understand what the point of it is, but I don't know if there's like a phrase that they were adapting for it or something like that.
It aired February 3rd, 2001. It currently sits at a 7.6 star rating on IMDb. This one, it's funny. Like, I feel like if there's a stock opening for any X-Men show, this is it. Is it a warehouse? Is it a prison?
I put factory. I wasn't sure either. Yeah.
So I just said opens a warehouse, but it says a no entry sign, or like
keep out.
Keep out, don't trespass. Then I was just like immediately confused, because Kitty phases in. That's not confusing. But then she like maces a guard. And I'm like, no, this is not checking out. Okay. And then.
But I also noticed right away, I was like, is that a character model that resembles Storm, or did she just mace Storm?
See, I didn't notice Storm then. I should have.
Yes, she did.
But then Spike takes out another guard. And I was like, was that Wolverine?
Yep.
I was like, maybe they're just recycling character models. But that was probably supposed to be a nod to us, what was happening. And then...
Yeah, as soon as I saw Logan, I interpreted it as a training thing. Mm-hmm. Storm, because the character model has changed with like when she's wearing makeup, the different hair and stuff like that. I was like, oh, it could have just been somebody who looked like her. But the second like you saw that Logan nose, you knew it was the same. It was the team. So
yeah, and I think I started suspecting stuff around then because like when stuff seems off, I was like, oh, is this a Danger Room thing? And then they cut to like an inside of the building somewhere where Cyclops and Nightcrawler are doing kind of their take on the Mission Impossible, like, you know, the string thing where Tom Cruise like gets really close to the lasers, except instead of like the line, it's Jean holding them with her telepathy or telekinesis.
She then calls them fat.
I know, right? She's like, which one of you gained weight? And Scott does make a point that Nightcrawler is eating hamburgers 7 days a week.
I mean, the dude probably has crazy metabolism. He probably needs to do it. Otherwise, he's going to like waste away.
Yeah. This is something we noticed in X-Men 92, but it's just this whole like 90s through Y2K era. It was always like about weight, which I guess that is not right, but it tracks with that time period because that's when like heroin chic look was in and stuff. So everybody was like really obsessed with physical visible weight to the point where it was a joke in this, and they reveal in their conversation that they're trying to rescue Storm, which this was at that point I was like, okay, this is Danger Room because we don't know why Storm is captured unless they're trying to do something really dramatic.
See, I didn't get it as rescue Storm. I just got rescue.
Oh, so they said something like hold on Storm or whatever, like, you know, and so I was like, okay, that's Storm down, but then you couldn't see her face, so I was like, something's off. Like, I don't know what's going on here. Then someone comes up behind Jean. So I forgot to say this. Jean is like not in the building. She's like on the skylight outside.
Yeah, she's looking through the roof.
And someone comes up behind Jean and startles her, and of course it like breaks her concentration. She drops Cyclops and Nightcrawler. I think Nightcrawler tries his best to like kind of ninja his way through the lasers. Totally doesn't work. They set off everything.
But before that, Cyclops misses 2 shots trying to hit the chain on the prisoner, and then on the third one he hits it. I was like, you have to look at something. This should not be hard for you to aim. Right. But I guess it goes to what we've been talking about with Cyclops, where it is very focused on he doesn't have the control of his power the same way that we interpret the control of the later version of him in 92 as an adult. So
all of them, you know, even here like Jean, she can't hold up 2 teenagers, you know.
Right.
But you know, we're assuming that we're going to get to the point where we were at 92 where she can hold up the entire Blackbird. And then the hooded figure that we thought was Storm turns around and reveals to be Rogue. Which surprises everyone. She
grabs Cyclops and starts to absorb his power when he's caught off guard.
Yeah, and then it cuts to the intro, and I think as kids, it's supposed to be like, oh crap, they got caught by Rogue. But as adults, we're like, oh, okay, this is the Danger Room.
Yeah.
Or something else. I don't know. We don't know what it is, but probably the Danger Room. Comes back from the opening credits, and Rogue, who has absorbed Cyclops' power, blasts Nightcrawler. Cyclops is like, wait, hold up. Stop. And then
he just he's like basically like, I'm turning this off in the middle of the simulation right now.
And then Xavier enters with the rest of the X-Men. It's like, you know our rule, we don't stop this unless someone's hurt. And Kurt's like, I was hurt.
This didn't feel great.
Yeah. And Cyclops has a good point. He was uncomfortable that he was like, why was Rogue in here? And Xavier's like, element of surprise, which was like a really boomer answer. Because he was like, I don't like the idea of like making someone we just met an enemy when we're trying to recruit her.
Well, it's also a little bit of foreshadowing too, because he's like, I wasn't briefed about this. And a part of the conversation really goes around like the honesty of Charles too.
Yeah. Which I think I'm setting myself up to learn that this is not the most moral. I mean, we've already said this, his morally gray stance here in this version, but it keeps compounding in this episode, we'll put it that way.
Yeah, I think this episode even more so than the other ones, that we have a little bit of trouble trusting Xavier here.
And so he's like, well, you gotta get ready for school. I'm like, damn, this was before school even started.
Yeah, dude, I'm not gonna run around the block before my workday starts. I don't know how they're doing a full Danger Room training.
Did school start pretty early for you too? Because I remember having to get to school around like 7:30ish or something.
Yeah, I think we were like, first class starts around 8 o'clock.
Yeah, why did they make us do that? Do they still
probably because of parents needing to get into work by like 8:30 or 9.
I kind of get that, but especially in high school, if I end up driving myself and then there's school buses, I don't know. But then you're like back at home.
Not everyone has a car, Rod.
But I guess maybe in Bayville, in Greentown, Indiana, where everybody lived a mile and a half from the school, and then
I love that you're just doxing yourself.
Right. Well, nobody wants to go to Greentown anyway. Yeah. So Cyclops, he's bothered that they made Rogue the enemy. And I don't know. I get that. I'm like, even though we're not the biggest Cyclops fans and stuff, it's like, you got a point because you're still a child, and he's one of the few adults in here. And then he kind of threw this. I don't know. Anyway, then it cuts to the school, you're kind of putting together that they're packing the school bus for a trip to like the caves. They're going to go spelunking or something. But it's really confusing because there's like snowmobiles and I don't know what kind of trip this is.
I feel like if you're going to explore caves, snowmobiles on the back of a school bus is a very interesting choice.
Yeah, I loved how the bus driver, who I guess is also probably a teacher.
It was their teacher who was also driving the bus, yes.
And he was like, only necessities to, survive in a cave, which, ooh, okay. And no game toys. And I was like, I guess that was like the writer's workaround for like, you can't bring your Game Boy, because everyone held up a Game Boy.
So here was the crazy thing, man. Like, the Game Boy itself, at this era, they were only at Game Boy Color. The Game Boy Advance, which is when you actually shift the form and shape of it, did not come out until after this episode aired.
Yeah, I only know that because like Y2K, like 99 to 2000 was when the Pikachu Game Boy came out and stuff. And in 98 or 99, I worked at whatever year the Game Boy Color came out. I worked at Walmart.
I believe that was 98.
And that was the big deal for Black Friday.
Yes, because I made a note on it. That was 98.
So there you go, 98. So I specifically remember me and the other guys who worked in electronics, we were told to hold the Game Boy Colors. This is when you could hide stuff from the public. So when people would come in before Black Friday, we tell them we're all out, because that's where our boss told us to tell them.
Right.
And then on Black Friday, they released all of them. And I just remember, obviously being a high school student, we threw them all in a shopping cart, and in the Black Friday crowds in the 90s, if anybody can remember those, we just threw the cart into the middle of a crowd and just like let them tear each other apart.
God, I wish we had cell phone cameras at that point in our lives. The footage would just like have everybody's aunt just super embarrassed in the modern day.
Yeah, and probably saying things that would change the way you think about some of your elders.
Oh, it became very problematic very quickly.
Yeah. Well, you remember the Cabbage Patch Wars? Man,
I believe that was like the year I was like 1 or 2 years old. So no, I do not remember it. I've heard of it, but I've never. I don't remember living through it. Thank God.
On the side of the bus, Cyclops and Jean are walking by, and Cyclops is telling Jean how much it bothers him. Once again, that he doesn't want to be thinking of Rogue as an enemy when they're actively trying to recruit her. And Mystique, who is still Principal Darkholm, overhears from the dark corner and kind of like she gives that little like villain eyebrow raise, and then it cuts into a room inside a building that's next to where they're loading the bus.
Their school has an awesome, like, full-fledged dojo in their gym. It was like there were boxing bags and like all that, and she's just going for it. She does like a crazy like spin kick and stuff like that. I was like, what are you doing at your school? Our school, we didn't have any of that shit.
Yeah, we had one room that had to be 20 things. It was like, this is the wrestling / tennis / weightlifting /
Yeah.
Yeah, so Rogue's training in there for whatever. I guess she's like, I'm at a new school by myself, so I got to, pump up. And then Principal Darkholm comes in there and kind of manipulates the information and tells Rogue, I just overheard Cyclops, or Scott, I think she references him as Scott.
She only says Scott. She doesn't say their code names.
Scott talking about how they use the enemy in their battle simulation, and like, which is true, but leaves out a key component where Scott was like one of the only people bothered by it. So she's like, well, you're gonna have to find out for yourself. I don't know, we're gonna find out that this was not a good decision, but even at this point, it was like, I don't know what you're expecting to happen here. So she throws like Rogue a bag she had packed already. She's like, you're going on this trip. Oh, and I forgot to mention, while Rogue is training, she looks out and sees Jean and Scott packing their snowmobiles. It's so dumb to hear. And this is something we see from Rogue in a lot of iterations of her, is like her watching their relationship and like kind of, you can tell that she's envious that they can like touch each other and stuff. She doesn't say it in this, but you get it.
Yeah, the second somebody actually touches another person, it just makes awkward moments for Rogue.
And it's specifically these two, because they're like probably like the biggest couple in this group, in every iteration and stuff.
Yeah, and we've also seen like there is a little bit of like awkwardness, even if it's not like formally a crush, but like she's had her moments with Scott already, like going back a few episodes to the Shakespeare stuff and everything like that. So yeah.
Yeah, but then we go back outside to the bus. The teacher / bus driver comes over and tells Jean like, oh, bad news, you can't go, something was wrong with your permission slip or something.
You've been absent too many times, which I actually agree with.
Yeah.
Because we've been talking about this, like, she just keeps getting pulled out of classes, and it's got to be, what, her, like, junior or senior year that she's just, like, skipping a quarter of the school year at this point.
And Scott's like, oh, those were all approved. Go ask Xavier. And he's like, there's not enough time. And it was like, I don't know how it was for your school. In my school, there was even a maximum amount of time you could miss of approved school. Like, even if you were sick or something, like, you couldn't, like, miss half the school year and still, like...
Yeah, they would, like, hold you back a year, Well, I went to private school, and it was paid, so they definitely would have held you back if they could have gotten extra money out of you.
Well, it was just mainly that, like, even if it was justified that you missed, you didn't get the actual, like, education. So you can't move forward. There's only so much of a threshold. And so if she's, like, fighting a war, like, 4 out of the 5 days of the week...
Going to Texas to pick up the blob, you know?
Right. They don't push back too much. And Scott's like, well, who is going? And then he sees Rogue enter the bus. He's like, oh, God damn it.
Then we jump over to the mansion, and it's windy out. Yeah. And Xavier has this, like, giant, like, it's not a bay window, whatever the fuck kind of, like, double door style window, just, like, open as the weather's getting crappy.
Yeah. And he goes to try to close it, and then we see, like, waves push him back. And at this point, we don't have enough information from other characters to know exactly who it is. We quickly find out it's Magneto. So I guess now we have a point of reference to what Magneto's powers look like in animation in the show.
Yeah, because like we had in 92, it was that like yellow pulse. Here it's a little more just like it gets fuzzy.
It kind of looks like Xavier in 92's like mental, like his thinking way. I don't know.
Brainwaves?
Brainwaves, yeah, there you go.
The best part, again, we are an audio-only podcast, and Rod is pantomiming. It's fantastic. Actually, and his cat is judging him from the side.
If you want to have a visual of what my brainwaves look like right now, just imagine oatmeal pouring out my ears. That's what's happening. So Magneto pushes him back and then says, aren't you going to tell them the truth? And I feel like they just threw that out of nowhere. Because I was like, we don't know anything about Magneto and Xavier's relationship, what the truth might be.
Well, the interaction is Magneto arrives and he says he wants to pay him a compliment, and you're only getting the voice at that point. Mm-hmm. And then we actually have Xavier say that he's proud of his students, and Magneto's response is, well, you're proud of them, but you obviously don't trust them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So that's why you need to tell them the truth. And, like, Magneto was, I think, referring to, like, their power sets are growing because they're getting older and stuff.
Well, that's part of what you're implied at the time, but we find out later on it's something a little more obvious. But he's like, yeah, you trust him with your life, but not the truth. And it's kind of like, it's a pretty solid dig, honestly. It's like, you'll let them save your life, but you can't tell them one important thing.
Yeah, and also I would not trust a bunch of teenagers, superpowered or not, with my life.
Fair.
And then it gets kind of violent. He closes the glass windows and then like shoves Xavier into it.
He pulls Xavier so it smashes into the windows.
So, and I guess just to drive the point home, like I can do whatever I want to you at any given time. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't freeze frame it, but from what I caught, there was like this flash of Rogue and Nightcrawler, at least, maybe somebody else.
I think that's just how they do the transitions in this show. I don't think that's a story point. Instead of like an X wipe or something like that, it's
Okay, yeah, because I didn't know. I was like, is that something going through Xavier's head?
Because I thought it was something like that a few episodes ago. And it wasn't the case. Yeah,
it's like a drag and drop transition.
Yeah.
Then back at the bus, they're driving around the snowy mountain, which I've driven on roads like that. It's like wide enough for one vehicle around the side of a mountain. I don't know if a bus would be allowed to drive a bus full of students on a road like that
with a trailer.
With a trailer full of snowmobiles.
Yeah. So you have a extra long vehicle with a trailer of snowmobiles behind it driving through the snow. This teacher should be arrested.
Right. And he's the only adult on the bus.
It also, weirdly enough, like at the beginning, it felt like this was a trip that was going to have like a decent amount of students on it, and then it ends up being like 6.
Yeah, because they only had, like a handful of snowmobiles. Anyway, so the bus driver says like, "Oh no, snow's coming down," and the kids are like, fresh powder or whatever, and he's like, "That's not good when we're in a bus with a trailer." To your point.
I just imagine one of the kids is Beavis from Beavis and Butthead Do America, and he just screams, "We're all gonna die" at the top of his lungs as the teacher.
I thought you were gonna say, "Breaking the law, breaking the law."
Oh, God, that was like season 1 of Beavis and Butthead.
And so he's like, "Well, if it snows too bad, we might have to turn around." It's like, I feel like when you say that it's starting to snow too bad, that's when you turn around. Mm-hmm. When there's too much snow, it's too late to turn around.
Yeah, when you get to the point that you can no longer turn around, you've already missed your window.
Yeah, and right on cue, he skids out of control to what, like, even just watching as an animation was like, that is horrifying. Because I don't know if that's what my cars actually look like on roads like that, but that's what it feels like. It's spinning out of control. And there was a couple times I thought for sure that they were already off the mountain, but they were still kind of in and out. Scott peeps his head out, and somehow none of the other kids, I guess, are all panicking. Don't pay attention to him.
They're all worried they're gonna die. They're having their Beavis and Butthead plane crash moment.
Except for Rogue,
who does not give a fuck.
Is still just watching Scott.
She is fucking emo goth girl to the extreme. She's like, bring on the sweet release of death.
Right. And I guess he uses his optic blast to kind of make a barrier to catch the, basically a guardrail. It probably should have been there anyway.
They probably should have been driving on something with a guardrail, and Scott gave all mountains the inspiration to have guardrails installed.
There you go.
Yeah.
Guardrails started with Scott Summers in 2001.
In 2001.
I actually would not be. I know that's not the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was real. It's like those things that are more recent than you think they are. You're like, credit scores.
Wasn't it like 1977 that you had to stop drinking while driving?
Yeah, in the 80s, or when you had to like seatbelts, and then the 90s were airbags and stuff. Like, and you're like, wait, what were we doing before? It's like, I don't know.
I mean, to age ourselves properly, Rod, we all remember playing on playgrounds that it was metal bars, metal slides on top of cement. We didn't even have wood chips usually.
Oh yeah, and those metal slides, even if like they didn't hurt you like by impact, you'd just be cooked by them.
Yeah, you became light bacon.
Yeah, and then you're sliding down, and stainless steel is not slippery.
Nope.
So it's like friction and like heat.
Yeah, we learned that at the Walking Dead escape. I want to say it was 2014 when that happened, and I'm still shocked they did that thing multiple years in a row. When in the first year, I want to say I heard over a dozen people actually had to get taken away by ambulance because they like sprained their ankle at Padres Stadium in the obstacle course. It was wild.
Oh no, it's kind of like living in Arizona right now. Did you see that thing where people, when they fall on the sidewalk, they're getting like life-threatening burns because the pavement's so hot?
Oh no, I'm talking about a dangerous slide. That sounds even worse.
Yeah, no, it's worse because as of recording right now, I think Arizona's hit a record of going 31 or more days over 110 degrees.
Yeah, it's fine.
I think they're worried about like how many years it's going to be until Phoenix is uninhabitable.
I saw a reel where somebody put a cookie inside their mailbox.
So an old video from my main YouTube channel, RKVC. This was probably back in the early, like 2013, 14-ish or whatever. I baked cookies on my dashboard of my car once in a heat wave in Delaware. I keep wanting to do it here, but time and also makes your car smell. But
it smells like cookies, Rod. Could be worse things.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like, I want to try something different. I want to do like a pizza or something. It's like that's less savory after time.
But
yeah, you can totally do it. And you can also definitely do the egg thing on sidewalks. Yep. Totally works, give it enough time. Anyway, we're living in end times. Have fun with it.
But the teacher, after he stops the car, is like, maybe we should just head back now. And it's like, you almost just killed people. How are you driving in any direction on this, dude?
Yeah, I don't even know.
Because there wasn't anything bad. It wasn't like there was a weather machine or a mutant power. It was like, this was just an irresponsible teacher. That's all it was.
And it was like, by the looks of it, it was just like lightly snowing.
I mean, I think that probably was just an animation choice. But again, neither of us have driven a bus, especially a bus with a trailer after it. So
I have driven box trucks before, probably when I wasn't allowed to for work for a very irresponsible boss.
You're just breaking all your NDAs today.
Yeah, right. And he never made an NDA, which may come in handy someday. And those things are terrifying to drive, so I can only imagine. But yeah, anyway, so like we had mentioned, Rogue was already watching Scott, so she sees him do the thing. So I guess that was supposed to plant a seed that he wasn't totally evil. I don't know what that was supposed to exactly do, but she smiles when she sees him blast.
Yeah, I got that out of it too, that it's, I mean, granted, he's also doing it for self-preservation as well, so it's not obviously completely selfless, but at the same time, it's like, oh no, it's still an heroic action.
Yeah, and so since they decide they're not going to turn around, or they can't,
Rogue is like, let's just go to the cave using the snowmobiles.
Right. I didn't see the teacher after this. On the was the teacher on one of the snowmobiles?
He wasn't on one of the snowmobiles, but he was at the cave because, well, we'll get to the cave in a second, but I didn't see him get on a snowmobile.
Yeah, so I guess, maybe it's implying that he ended up figuring out the bus later on or something, because, like, otherwise they just abandoned a bus and a trailer on the side of a mountain.
I think they abandoned the bus and the trailer, honestly.
All right, well, anyway, so they take that, and then, and so this teacher lets teenagers on a snow, like where it snowed so much they had to stop a bus, just snowmobile themselves up to a dark cave.
Which, okay, real talk, how did they know where the cave was?
Right. I'm not completely sure that they arrived at the right one.
Just a random cave.
Because Rogue and Cyclops, Rogue looks at Cyclops, is like, want to race? And both, so they're on separate snowmobiles with other passengers of just generic other students, and both those other students are like, "Wait, what?"
Was the guy on with Cyclops, his buddy Paul or whatever his generic name was, the one from the first episode?
Maybe I can put that together.
I think it might have been,
because that's going to pay off later. Then
I think it was, yeah.
Okay,
but again, everybody's all bundled up, so it's harder to tell with the character model too.
If it was Paul, yeah, that's going to mean something different later in this episode.
Yep.
And then they race, and it's this action-packed like Y2K. At first,
Rogue tries to kill them.
Yes. And that was purposeful too. That wasn't just for like extreme sake or whatever.
No, she literally bumps her snowmobile into theirs as they're like on an edge, and then like to the point where Cyclops and other guy needed to lean over to not topple over and die.
This like at first I was like, what is happening? This was a little too far removed for me for a second, and I was like, right, 2001.
Yeah,
like this is the fantasy that like if you were a teenager then, like you know, it's like being a superhero as a kid or whatever. Like this is what you'd want to do on a school field trip. You want to go like extreme snowmobiling or whatever. So it's like, I get it. Okay, it's an action sequence. And when they arrive at the cave, the random guy says what we were all thinking. He's like, she had no concern for our lives.
Yeah. I will say I do appreciate from a like writing perspective, they do not shy away in this show about acknowledging when something is deadly.
Yeah. Even though Rogue and Cyclops are both like into it and have like gone into like teenage Y2K fantasy world, the other two passengers are like the rest of us. They're like, what is going on? So there's like at least an acknowledgement of like how crazy everything is.
Well, the girl that's on with Rogue is like, I'm going to throw up. And then when they get to the cave, she actually like leans over to vomit.
Which I get, man.
Blonde vomits.
Yeah. Go back to the mansion. Xavier's talking with Wolverine, and Wolverine says, again, I think you should tell the kids the truth. And I was like, okay, so this is something that Magneto and Wolverine knows. This is a wild, connect of like, what is something that both those people know?
And then we get the reveal that Xavier doesn't want to tell them about Mystique.
Which I was like, you want to tell the kids that you're sending to school that someone's trying to murder them, especially if it's a principal. And then I didn't think it'd get more shocking than that, but then they shock us a little bit later, even more, at least me. But yeah, I was like, yeah, I agree with everyone else, Xavier. You should tell these kids that their principal is homicidal, specifically to them.
I do love that Wolverine is like, no, these kids know how to keep a secret and can keep it cool. Okay, are you training them, Wolverine, to be that cool? Because I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I like Kurt as a character, but he's kind of a bumbling idiot. And as we see in next week's episode, I don't necessarily know if I trust Evan to keep a secret.
Right. Yeah, or maybe just, I mean, I guess not sending them to school is suspicious, but at the same time, like they already have the whole institute, but aside from just needing the kids to be at a public school for the draw of being a high school show, it doesn't seem safe if that's the whole idea, to have them go to public school.
So the only thing I would say as devil's advocate on that one is, if you look at all the versions of the X-Men where the older X-Men are the teachers, where was Storm's qualification to teach history? Where is Wolverine's qualification to teach, aside from Beast, which again we've established in previous episodes, he only has a doctorate in optometry apparently. Who is actually qualified to be a teacher?
I get that, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
Because they still need they need to learn how to like balance a checkbook and shit, Rod. Come on.
Did you learn that in school? Because I didn't.
No, I didn't. Not at all.
It's like
that's our boomer ass joke.
I will say though, credit to Mrs. Sprock. When I was in high school or maybe junior high, our home ec class, she may have shown us like one day how to do a checkbook. She definitely taught us how to like address an envelope at one point, because she was like, "This is actual home economics." And at the time, I was like, I thought I was baking bread. And then I got older. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm gonna write envelopes more than I'm gonna make a loaf of bread. So that could go Miss Sprout.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna write envelopes and balance a checkbook more than you're going to, figure out the hypotenuse of fucking anything.
Right.
Yeah. We ended up in entertainment. We just need to know what that word means in case it's ever in a fucking script, and that's it.
Storm and Jean come in. Xavier's like, I thought you were supposed to be on that field trip. And Jean was like, yeah, Darkholm replaced me at the last minute, and no one questioned it. And it's like, who they send instead? They sent Rogue.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. And then that was what...
I also thought there was going to be like some reveal at that point, which doesn't come to fruition, that Storm is going to be like, oh yeah, the storm that's happening outside is out of the norm and it's not Earth itself. It's like, you know, a machine or another mutant's power or something.
Yeah.
And that just never happens.
Yeah, no.
And I'm okay with it. I actually kind of like that. It was just like, oh no, this is just a very irresponsible teacher.
Yeah. And so Xavier's like, well, we should go check this out. I'm like, you think homicidal principal, random snowmobile trip to Dangerous Mountain, the person that you made the enemy in the danger room is on this trip now suddenly? It only took like 20 things for Xavier to be worried. This is why Xavier doesn't have his own kids. This is
also why he's not a teacher in this version.
There you go. Yeah. So
back to the cave.
The teacher is just like, well, let's make the best of this, and just resumes having a tour of the cave.
But I guess that's also what his original plan was. So,
kinda,
were they just like all gonna sleep in the tent, in the caves anyway? Like that, I feel like this guy did not plan out this trip well.
Yeah, it was unclear what the whole picture of this thing was like, because if they already had snowmobiles, I guess were they going to take a bus to a certain point and then snowmobile to the cave? I don't know. It was like
that's the vibe I got, because otherwise, why would you have the snowmobiles?
Yeah, we're asking. Meanwhile, is the writer, if anybody who wrote this episode, are like, you're not supposed to think about that part. We needed snowmobile chase. We needed a cave. We put it together.
Well, we have made friends with one of the creative team members who hopefully won't hate us too much to come on a future episode of the show.
Yeah.
So
stay the all in jazz. Love the show overall. And this is coming from somebody who's never seen it before. So the bus driver / teachers continue the cave tour.
Teacher, you don't have to call him the bus driver. He does give like a weird explanation, which again, anytime we reference some of this stuff, I will acknowledge that it came from one of the wikis and was not me putting my own scientific spin on it. He mentions that the rock had changed and they refer to it as a mutation. According to that fandom, they said that it was the wrong kind of rock, where it was supposed to be like igneous rock or whatever it was. Like basically the kind of rock that mutates was wrong. So again, he might be a bus driver, going back to your original point, not a teacher.
I thought that they were going to reveal that he was Mystique because of how weird it was, but we were going to find out that's not the case.
Right.
And then Rogue sneaks off. I was trying to figure out why, but then I was like, that's her character type, is the Rogue, you know, when she just like does her own thing in any given situation.
Right. The only argument I would give is I feel like you get away with that if there's, 20, 25 students on a field trip. Probably more challenging when there's only 6 of you who've survived.
Yeah, which is more of a testament to how crap the teacher is.
Bus driver.
Bus driver. He doesn't notice that there's 1/6 of his group missing.
And then Scott follows, and the teacher seems to not notice that too.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I came here with 4 kids, right? On that giant bus. Or he's just used to students dropping like flies during field trips. I don't know.
Yeah, he actually is from another alternate Earth where there's just constantly like horror movies. So he just loses kids at random, and he stopped caring years ago.
Right. Cyclops goes after her, and he almost steps off a cliff. I don't know where Rogue went at this point, because there's not many places for her to dip off to, but she appears behind him, and then
she dipped in a corner or something like that.
Confronts him. She acts like she's gonna kind of force him off the cliff. We find out in a little bit that that's not her intention. She just wants to get some answers.
Yeah.
So she's kind of talking to him about like, why am I in your training thing and stuff. And
at first it's, what do you want from me? And he says, I want your friendship. And the way they delivered the line I thought was really good, because it didn't sound 100% legitimate. Which because yes, he wants to be friends with her, but it's also more the recruitment than just point blank friendship, And I actually liked, in whether that was intentional or not, or that just how it ended up being, I like that it didn't just sound like him being sincere about the friendship. It was like, it was a little hazy. I think that was a great choice by them.
Especially like, I was thinking like, that's not a thing to say to someone who doesn't already trust you.
Right. Yeah. And then of course she questions, well, I heard about you, using me as a target in your battle simulation. And of course Scott goes into defensive mode of, well, we're not who you think we are. It's like, well, maybe you should give a better fucking explanation than that, sir.
Right. And then Paul finds them, which I'm not sure if it was the guy on the back of Scott's snowmobile, but given the number of students, there's a high probability that
it's a 50-50 shot.
Yeah. Either Paul was sent by the teacher to find, 1/3 of the group.
So then they literally just divide the party. It's like a bad D&D campaign.
Right. Or the teacher does not realize that now he has lost half the group. But Paul quickly reveals that he's Mystique.
Yes.
But then the surprise to me was they knew Mystique. So many questions. Okay, so
they being Cyclops knew Mystique. Yeah.
Cyclops knew Mystique. If Xavier was already holding from them that they were going to school with a homicidal principal who was a shape-shifting mutant, especially if they already knew her, yes, definitely tell those kids. That's where they, it's not like he's trying to hide, a complete mystery. It's like someone, sending, equivalent of sending someone to, a space with, their abuser or something, them.
So the only thing I think is, I don't know if Cyclops has seen Mystique cross over into the homicidal side of stuff. Mm-hmm. There's definitely the opposing recruitment. No pushback on that. But I think there may be a little bit of what you also know about Mystique from other shows that may be influencing the homicidal aspect of it. Because she hasn't point blank tried to kill somebody yet, as far as we've seen.
But right now it's just kind of a feud.
It's more of a gang war than genocide.
Yeah. But it's still it kind of makes me so
it's still fucked up. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to justify it.
What was such a big? So what? Why was it a big deal to Xavier? I don't know. I'm hoping in future episodes we're going to get more expansion of what the dynamic, because then if Magneto is Mystique's boss and he was Xavier, you should tell him the truth. And I was Magneto has the power for the kids to find the truth. I think he just likes that power dynamic of having the information.
Yep.
And Xavier's not telling. I don't know. There's a lot of. This is getting more complicated than I thought the show was going to get.
I kind of love that though.
Right. And so Cyclops has the mind blown moment of oh crap, so our principal's Mystique.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't just that Mystique is Paul. It's that Mystique is also the principal at that time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so she calls it out. That's the best part. She's like, "Oh, what? Xavier never told you?" Yeah. And it's that is fucked up.
Yeah, and then she pushes him off the cliff.
Yep.
So if he hadn't seen the homicidal part yet, he saw it then.
Yeah. That's the moment where it does become homicidal. I will grant you that.
And then Rogue freaks out, which is when I realized, she wasn't going to Rogue wasn't going to try to kill Scott. She was just trying to scare him. She was like, what the hell did you do that for, And Mystique doesn't really give that much of an answer. She's just well, he's done with now. But I don't know what that was going to win Mystique over on Rogue. I don't know.
Yeah, because she's like, oh, yeah, I'm just, protecting you from lies. And she's like, well, did you fucking kill Paul, too? And then
what'd you do to Paul?
She very slyly is like, oh, well, Paul missed his bus. And then she, made up a thing. And I was like, did she also just, bury Paul in, the fucking, school grounds or something like that?
And so if that was Paul in the back of Cyclops' snowmobile,
that means that it was Mystique holding on.
That's kind of hilarious. And so I don't know, if she was acting scared or if she was oh shit. She just thought she was going on this trip.
I think it was the act, because what we see with this Mystique in a bit, she could have survived if there was a crash.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
I was like, oh, that's not the way you were going to do this. Also, if you're going to kill somebody, make sure you actually kill them.
Yeah. It's one of those, it's a Disney kill, right? Where, you don't see them. So if there's no body, then it didn't happen.
Yep.
And especially later when we see what's at the bottom of that cliff. I don't know what that's supposed to... Yeah. Rogue thinks fast, and she takes off her glove. It touches Mystique. And this was less about taking her powers and more about seeing her memories.
Right. Which I do love, because we didn't get a ton of that in 92. The majority of 92 was focused on powers.
And so we see basically flashes of Rogue's origin story.
You see
the X-Men,
the car ride with Destiny and Mystique, the Wolverine attack, and then the Cyclops and Jean impersonations, and then also Magneto in the school where Mystique says to Magneto, "Yeah, we're lucky we got to her first."
Yeah. So it was kind of like a shortcut of getting Rogue to realize what the audience knows.
Right, but I also like that it was such a quick grab. It was only the most recent memories.
Yeah, because otherwise I was like, is she going to also find out that those two are...
Yeah, are they going to give the whole thing to her right now? Which also, we don't even have formal confirmation of the other stuff yet with Destiny.
Yeah.
That's just, me bringing in the history I know of the characters from other stuff. So,
and knowing Y2K stuff, it'll probably be like Aunt Destiny or something, instead.
Yeah.
Then Mystique passes out, and Rogue looks over and sees that Scott is hanging over like a secondary ledge.
Which, props to him for being able to hold on to that. I got to give him credit. It wasn't like he was like gripped on like a rock that his body wrapped around it. He was hanging by his hands.
Yeah, it's like fingertips.
Yeah.
Which, whenever I see those, and I know they're always in animation, so we're not supposed to think this hard about it. I'm like, when do your fingers break? Like, you'd be the strongest person in the world, but just your, hands like
to grip on it as you're falling is yes.
It was like snap, right? Like, it was
there's definitely some Daredevil Instagrammer who has died trying to do that very thing.
So he's hanging on. I don't know if she actually turned into Mystique or he just saw that because he's hallucinating. She did? Okay.
Yeah, because they showed the transformation out of it.
She jumps down, which is kind of a mindfuck, I guess, because she just scares him first.
Yeah.
And then helps him
Fucking
up.
Emo girls, man.
Right? And then Mystique wakes up, and I guess she's super strong because she picks up a boulder, like bigger than her.
Yeah, she pushes a boulder.
And throws it down, which now, she's in, like...
it's murder mode.
Yeah, she's down to kill everyone, which also, if this is her daughter in this show, she was willing to kill her. So much to unpack there.
Yeah.
They don't get killed, but they get knocked off that secondary ledge
into the actual rapids.
Yeah, it still probably would have hurt, but them falling from that, which we see, they basically fell from about the same height, give or take like 20 feet or something. Mm-hmm. So they didn't die, they just hit some water, which is still not great. Yeah, Mystique wouldn't have killed Scott even if it wouldn't have got her in more trouble.
I don't know, if he had not hit that secondary thing, you drop 40 feet into the rapids, maybe it's a low enough bed. It can't be good for him, though.
Yeah. Which we'll see in a little bit. And so they fall into the water and they get picked up by the rapids. Scott blows off like the side of a cliff, so they have a place to kind of like swing out to.
Right.
But it doesn't hold on for very long. That also collapses. They fall onto like another I can only describe as like that like stone path that like Indiana Jones was on in one of the movies.
Also acceptable, the bridge from what's it called? The Balrog's Lair in Lord of the Rings.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
a natural bridge essentially.
And when they fell, it just visually looked really far, and then they thud, and I was accepting cartoon logic where like, okay, they just didn't break every bone in their body. But then, to their credit, Scott was actually like dying. Like,
he also had a bruise on his head. Like he actually had a purple like lump on his forehead.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, so he's actually struggling to stay, and she's like, don't pass out because he probably has a concussion.
And it's like, you're gonna be okay, and then Rogue is like, yeah, we're gonna die. And again. Definitely that big difference between starting your writing in 1992 versus starting your writing in 2000, because we never would have gotten that phrase in 1992.
Yeah. So she's apologizing to Cyclops because she knows the truth now and stuff, and she's trying to help him by keeping him awake, and I guess she's trying to scramble to figure out what else to do because I wouldn't know what to do in that situation. You're alone at the bottom of a cave, someone just trying to kill you. You don't know if that person's still alive.
And basically, she says that she knows enough now.
Then we see in a cutaway that the Blackbird is on their way with the adults of the team.
Well, right before the Blackbird, we do see that Mystique is looking at them from above. And the only expression I could say is she looks stressed out. Her body language is she's like, fuck, I didn't do it. Now I have to go down there and murder my kid.
Yeah. By hand, close combat.
Yeah.
So the Blackbird's on its way, and we finally got a great Storm line. So I'm kind of happy that we're doing this. So Storm's in the Blackbird, like doing something. I guess she's controlling the rate of the snow during this blizzard. Yeah,
she's trying to help calm it down with the wind or something like that. So to make the flight easier.
And Wolverine's like, we're not going fast enough. And Storm's like, I'm a weather witch, not a snowplow.
That was a really great Storm line.
That's a good line. They're on their way over there, and I'm thinking like, okay, well that's great, but like those kids are dying right now.
Also, you have to find them.
Yeah. And so then back at the Stonebridge thing, or wherever Cyclops, Rogue, and Mystique are at, I don't know if this is a thing. I've never seen it. Mystique stands up and turns into a wolf. Is that a thing?
So, alluded to it a little bit earlier. That is not normally a thing. According to the Evolutions fan wiki, in the comics, she cannot turn into non-humanoid creatures. So
I thought.
That's why she could like mimic somebody like Wolverine or Nightcrawler or somebody like that. But there usually is a humanoid aspect to what she turns into. In all of my comic memory, do not remember her turning into something that wasn't a human or humanoid looking mutant. So
that was a choice. And then, or maybe also wondered, because we found out through X-Men 92 that there's like weird standards and practices, requests and stuff. If there's some limitation on there being too much for like an adult humanoid woman to like try to kill teenagers on screen, and it was more acceptable if it was an animal attacking them. I don't know how that works. That doesn't sound right, but it was just like a weird. There's all these characters,
right?
Like she could have done anything. She could have turned into Logan or whatever. I don't know, but she turned into a wolf, like an actual wolf. And
she did try to kill her as Logan a few episodes ago. So who knows?
True, it didn't work. Yeah,
maybe because that failed. She's just like, oh no, I'm just gonna eat them.
Yeah. Oh, there's a whole other implication. And then Xavier back on the Blackbird tries to telepathically talk to Scott, but he senses that he's hurt. Scott gets enough of the message though that he tells Rogues like the X-Men are coming, and she's like, that's great, but how are they going to find us? And she thinks fast, and she takes off his glasses to send like basically a flare to the air. They see the blast, and they head towards it, because you kind of think like, well, that's not great.
All I want to know is, what if it was that 1 in a million chance where that was exactly when the Blackbird was flying above them?
That's like a Robot Chicken sketch.
Oh, 100%.
Then Rogue touches Cyclops just long enough to get, once again, she has more control of this power than he does.
She's also getting it in smaller bits too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And she blasts Wolf Mystique.
Yep. And that works. Go for it.
And she actually calls herself the Rogue. It's interesting. It's weird. Like I don't know if she just deduced that herself, because she's like, I'm always doing my own thing, so I'm a whatever.
Yeah, she doesn't call herself like Anna Marie or anything like that.
Yeah. She says the Rogue, and then she zaps the wolf off the cliff.
Turns into an eagle.
Yeah. Okay. See, it's funny. I have here hawk, and this is just a thing.
Oh, it could be a hawk.
Whenever we see eagles in especially American media, the sound is always a hawk, and it always confuses me. And
because the American eagle has the worst caw ever. It just sounds like a bird that just wants to get beat up.
Yeah. And so it's some sort of bird and flies away, which I thought was even. The wolf was already a leap, and the eagle / hawk, like I think that might be X-Men's jump shark animation thing, for me at least, a little bit, because that's just wild. And I know from anybody outside of like the Marvel fandom and stuff, it's like, why is a superhero? It's like, it's just, in my experience, even though I don't read like a lot of comics and stuff, when you just have never seen it from someone like Mystique, you get used to like even just a ballpark of rules. It's like if I saw her like turn into a car or something, it'd be like, is that a thing? Like
that's inorganic, Rod. That's stupid.
It was just so jarring.
I get that. If it was a brand new, never before seen character, it would have been more accepting to you versus somebody who you have kind of like the preconceived set of rules around.
Yeah. So it was just wild. But the
like, you had no problem with WizKid in that Purple Man episode, who literally just started making machines do whatever the fuck he wanted.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because you just don't know. But Mystique is like, she's been interpreted so many ways, from the movies to the movies again to the shows and stuff, and every time there's always like this ballpark of like rules, no matter how they portray her. Imagine Jennifer Lawrence or Rebecca Romaine Stamos like just turning to like a wolf or something. It's just like really jarring. So I don't know. Yeah, so it was just really weird. But the whole signal thing worked. The Blackbird, they rescued them. I was gonna say they flew into a cavern, but it was suspension of disbelief. And in the cabin of the Blackbird, they're tending to Cyclops, who looks very hurt, but at least not fatally anymore or something. Like, they're tending to him. He's going to make it with a lot of recovery or something, because he's still passed out.
Well, I do like that before that, you get this little square off moment as Mystique in bird form is looking at Wolverine, and Wolverine is like, fucking go. Like, let's do this.
That's right. So that was another thing, was like Wolverine, I guess he saw the transformation happen, because otherwise I was like, he just looks at a random bird like Mystique. I'm like, what is going on?
I bet he smells that it's Mystique.
Oh, that's true. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
That's my bet.
Okay, see, that's believable, even though it's a bird.
Yeah, it's still her musk, though, or pheromones.
No, I just mean like her turning into a bird was like a weird choice, but him smelling her, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
There we go.
And then they talked to Rogue, and I think it's
Wolverine.
Wolverine was like, so where's your allegiance lie? And Rogue was like, if I don't say yes, you throw me back into the cave or whatever. And he's like, well, that's not what we do. He's like, except that's not what you've exhibited before.
This version of Wolverine, I would say though, he has not. Yeah. And he gives a great response, which is it's on us. Like, if we haven't earned your trust, then that's on us.
Yeah. And so she officially joins the X-Men. I feel like she was going to anyway because, she got all the memories from Mystique to find out what happened there. Then back at the mansion, everyone, but specifically Jean, is confronting Xavier about Mystique.
Jean pissed at Xavier.
Yeah. Which rightfully so, especially because her and Scott, are like the original ones, right? So they've probably been there the longest. They're like, how long have we been going to the school?
Yeah.
You've not told us that our principal's trying to kill us?
Yeah, at the very least, Jean and Scott feel like they should have been clued in because they've been there before they started doing this new recruitment drive. So,
and I don't get why Xavier didn't tell them. Not that there wouldn't have been reasons, but he gives no reasons.
Yeah, it's interesting because they're asking Rogue what she thinks, and she's saying, well, like, I just got here, it doesn't matter. And it's like, well, you're part of the family now. And then Xavier's like, oh yeah, there's some stuff that you guys are ready to deal with and other stuff you aren't. And I'll do a better job of deciding which one it is. Like, he actually doesn't give the resolution there. Like, he's still this weird shades of gray Xavier that it's like,
because it would have made a little sense, to me at least, if he would have been like, well, I didn't want you to jump the gun and try to attack her or something like that. We just didn't get any reasons, like why until like they were around someone dangerous daily. Regardless, even though he didn't give the resolution, they all reacted as if it was the end of Full House. And they're like, well, I guess that's what family does. And then credits roll, Right.
Like,
okay, I guess that's what it was.
Yeah, meanwhile, we're like, no, you actually didn't solve this problem.
Yeah.
You just said, I will be more thoughtful when I withhold information from you.
I don't know how you were as a teenager. It would have just made me be like, okay, now I'm definitely snooping out of this mansion.
100%. I would have been like, okay, cool, thanks. Yeah. And it's like, fingers crossed behind your back type shit.
Right. Especially if one of us can teleport wherever we want and the other one can like walk through walls. Like, we would have Mission Impossible that shit. Especially because we were literally training that earlier.
Seriously.
Otherwise, fun episode. I feel like it went a little fast. I don't know about you. Like, I kind of would have I don't want to critique writers because I'm not writing this, but I think there were some elements of this would have been nicer, like sprinkled throughout other episodes, and stuff. But it was just like they go on a ski trip, or not a ski trip, a snowmobile trip, and then make up.
Fair. But I also feel like it didn't have like any things that got glossed over. Like, I still feel like they addressed everything.
Yeah.
It just may have happened in a fast fashion because you're stuck with, a 22-minute runtime. So,
right. I also kind of I know they're not going to address this. I would love to get a peek into like what the rest of the school group, what happened to them, what they're thinking. Do they just think that 3 of them died? Yeah,
there's 3 missing kids. And it's never addressed.
Because it's not like they could just, I don't know, like, was Xavier going to be like, we got to take care of? Like, wait, why would you have it taken care of? You weren't on this field trip.
Xavier probably fucked with their brains.
That's right.
Because he has no problem doing it.
Stay tuned to next week's episode. We're going to see some more evidence of that. Yeah. Oh, that's probably, that's going to be.
I love how bad Xavier is the perfect resolution for this whole series.
Yeah, I would say that's going to be like the MacGuffin's still not the right word, but like the shortcut at any time. We can't explain it. Xavier probably did it.
Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Be like, yeah, he probably did something. All right. Cool.
And it was literally one of the first things that we saw during the entire series, so it's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. So that was basically it. The whole episode was to get Rogue to officially join the X-Men, trust them. Yeah, pretty much completely. She's definitely not a Mystique stud anymore.
No, definitely not. Well, when the woman tries to eat you as a wolf, it's really hard to be on their side.
Also, I wonder if those guys are ever going to trust any animals or any objects around them anymore. If they just saw this woman turn into a wolf and an eagle or hawk.
I want to just see Wolverine just randomly like stabbing animals that he doesn't trust.
That'd be great.
Every eagle that ever goes near the Blackbird, he just jumps out and stabs.
Yeah. That's great. Cool. Well, was there any trivia? Or
no, the 2 pieces were the Game Boy, which we didn't switch to Game Boy Advance until 2001. And then, we didn't have non-humanoid transformations for Mystique. But, some of these episodes, lots of trivia. This one, not so much.
Yeah. No, it's cool. We've filled the front with San Diego
Comic-Con
trivia, so.
Yeah. Yeah, after edit, this is still going to be an hour-long episode, so we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, we're going to wrap it up. Stay tuned next week, though, as we have our guest,
Kit Quinn.
Thanks for joining us. If you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them in the comments for either the YouTube upload or official Instagram post about this episode. If you like what you heard, we'd appreciate a rating on a podcast app you're choosing. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and CastBox. I really need to get some sleep sometime this week.
Not going to happen.